Squatch Senior here. Got a little project going on for Squatch 253 on his 5J1113 pony motor. He has requested that I rebuild the mag for him, so let's get started. Okay, here's our project mag. It's an Eisemann RC-2H. Originally came with this pony motor. I do have the books. I do have the Caterpillar operator's instruction manual. It goes through, it's got a starting engine Magneto section. Gives you some tests and how to time the mag to the engine and stuff like that in there. And also have the, basically I guess you could call it the Eisemann Bible here, which covers a lot of different Eisemann mags and which has the section of the RC-2H. So kind of goes through the different type mags on here, the 2H, 2Q, the differences, stuff like that. So first off, what I'm going to do with this mag, we have no history on it. We're going to put it on the pony motor right now and verify that this mag was timed to the engine correctly. So let's go put this on the engine and see what we come up with. Okay, when we install this mag, we have the M mark on the mag gear, and you'll see the line right here. It's kind of off a little bit. When this mag fires, it should be right on the arrow like that. But that puts you off a little bit here. So when I time this engine, I'll put that straight down. You'll notice this line is like on the Y of the cylinder. And then we'll install it on the pony engine just like this. So let's go to the pony motor. Okay, at the pony motor here, this is #1 cylinder. You gotta make sure that's on compression. You'll look inside the hole back here for the M mark on the gear.
Yep, could see it because I put the white mark on the M on the cam gear.
And on the flywheel, I make sure we're on the top dead center mark with the mark on the cover. So, M mark here should line up with M mark there. Okay, looking good?
Yep.
Okay, now when you turn this back to the mag, line your mag up with the mark on the cover.
With the scribe that's right there.
Yep, and we should be right on the arrow on the mag gear.
Yes, it's virtually right in line with the arrow, that white mark.
So that should be 25 degrees before top dead center is where this mag fires on #1 cylinder.
Yep.
So that verifies that. So we'll go out and we'll start doing some more checks on the mag. Now that we verified the mag has been tied with the engine, next step I'm going to do is see if this thing has any spark. Let's see if we can get focused on the plugs down here. I'm just going to rotate the gear back and forth. Might be kind of hard to detect if we can get spark, but we'll see what we can come up with. Okay, far plug has got a good blue spark. Let's see what the other one's got. Okay, that's got good spark too. Hopefully you guys can see that. I can see it good from my angle. So anyway, spark's been verified. This mag could probably be put on. Motor would just run okay with it. But what we're going to do, we're going to tear this thing down. We're going to clean her up, kind of see what the condition of the parts are inside, re-lube the bearings, check seals, new gaskets if it needs it, maybe even recharge the magnet. Looked like I had a really good blue spark, so I'm not real sure if we need to do that. But let's get into this and see what we come up with. One of the first things I'll do, I'll clean the outside up before I tear it apart. That way if I find anything out of the ordinary inside, I'm pretty sure it was in there already and not coming from the outside. So let's get this cleaned up and start a teardown. Well, here's the mag all cleaned up. Basically, to clean that up, all I did, I just took a wire brush, brushed it down dry, took some brake and parts cleaner, sprayed her down real good, took the air hose and blowed her dry. I think she turned out pretty good. I don't use solvents and stuff generally when I do an initial cleaning like that, but that's really nice when you start tearing stuff down to have it cleaned. The next process I go through, just kind of do a visual inspection of the outside of this. One thing I look for is screws. You can see somebody has used some dull screwdrivers there. You can see all the ends are all mushroomed out, so very good indication this thing has been torn down in the past. Generally what I do, I don't know if you can see in the background here, I do have quite a selection of different screwdrivers and some buckets. I custom do all my own screwdrivers, sharpen them myself. And here's an example of one I've started to do. I never use a grinder on them. I like screwdrivers I can file square. You can see here somebody's used a grinder. A lot of times what will happen is these things will get hard and kind of take a temper and stuff, and you'll never touch them with a file. The only possibility you got then is a grinder to do that. Got another one over here. You can see this has been kind of beat on in the past, but I did file this one all down. Nice square shoulders, nice tip. The only grinding I do is I square this off to get it wide enough. I file it down for the width I need. And what I'm looking for, if you get in, I'm looking for a perfect fit into these screws. Okay, you can see hardly no wobble like that. I'm across the full face of the screw, and you can see up here where they've had a dull screwdriver, rounded corners. Come on, steady, old man. And you can see where they've slipped out like that. That's where you need nice, square, sharp corners here. The only problem you run into with that, if you're in here trying to really put some force on it, you slip, go down, it will bite. So anyway, I custom do my own screwdrivers doing that. So just looking this thing over, you can see she's been torn down in the past. So in a way, that's kind of a red flag to me, but we'll finish tearing this thing down and see what we can come up with. Got the nut off the gear. It is right-hand thread on that. Got a 2-jaw puller hooked up. Got to be pretty careful. If this pulls real hard, we may have to do something else, but generally they don't come too bad. Definitely don't want to damage that gear. There she comes. It's a tapered shaft on there, so sometimes they glue themselves on pretty good. Plus, it is keyed. Well, next up, I took the cap off. This is the carbon brush style, where you got these carbon brushes in here. You can see that one's kind of short. I'm not sure if we got a weak spring or just a short brush. That definitely needs some attention. And she is quite dirty inside there too. Definitely needs a good cleanup. As far as carbon tracking, I see no carbon tracking on that. So as of right now, maybe a different story when she's cleaned up. Anyway, let's look at the internals here. Yeah, it looks like she could have had some moisture in the past. You can see in the bottom there, looks like some stuff. Coil's looking, I don't know. We'll just have to see. It's almost like it's dusty. Rotor isn't looking too bad. She's a little oily. A lot of times these will wear. You'll have a step off the Bakelite part onto here. And that can get your brushes vibrating. This one looks pretty smooth for the most part. But you start looking in here, we do have some issues. So we'll get this down a little bit farther and give you another look at what we got here. Next test I'm going to do on this mag is the edge gap test. The book says 2 to 3 millimeters. It also says to use a number 40 drill bit. So let's, I've got a wire gauge drill index here. I got my number 40 bit out. Let's see what that measures in metric. So that gives me 2.45. 2.5 is halfway in between 2 and 3, so that would put us about approximately halfway in between. Let's write that down. Okay, let's switch over to the inch scale. Make sure we're zeroed out. Push the 0 number. Let's see what that measures in the inch scale. 0.0955. Let's write that down. Now that we have the decimal size, let's go up to the twist drill chart I've got here. It's kind of an antique chart picked up off of one of the swap meets. Kind of been a really handy deal. So let's go up to 0.0955, see what we find. We go into here, we'll find 0.0938, which is virtually equivalent to a 3/32 drill bit. So number 40 drill bit or a 3/32 drill bit will put you in somewhere in between halfway of 2 and 3 millimeters. Okay, now to check edge gap on this, what you do is insert your number 40 drill bit here in between the rotor and the pole shoe. We'll see if we can get this on video for you. If you can look in there, you'll see right in this area right there, you can see where the rotor right here and the pole shoe here. What you do is you put your drill bit in there. You turn this anti-clockwise from normal rotation, and that would be your edge gap right there between the pole shoe and the rotor. Now to check the edge gap, I utilized an old flashlight I had. The switch went bad. So what I did is I hooked the wire up to the positive end of the battery where the tab hits the bulb holder, and I put the black one down here to the ground side, so when I hook my wires together and put it on ground here, you can see I have continuity. Basically all this amounts to is a continuity tester. You could do the same test with an ohmmeter, that would work just fine too. But anyway, what I did, disconnected the wire from the points to the condenser, left it up on the points, and then to adjust edge gap, you do that by loosening the point plate and rotating that till your edge gap is set where it is. Okay, let's do the test and see what we got here. We'll get the drill bit inserted here. Okay, let's just break. When the light comes on, points are closed. When it goes off, points are open. And that's right where your edge gap. Well, I tell you, we're really, really close, which gives me confidence. As you can see here, let's turn that a little bit, get the light off. You can see, I don't know if you can pick it up in there, but right in this area right here, I'm going to unhook that light. We'll see if we can get a light in it. You can see right down in there, the plate has got a line and the case has got a line. So when I put this thing back together, I feel pretty confident my edge gap should be set into that area. You got to make sure your points are set at 20 thousandths too, before you do your check. But it gives me confidence with all these checks that I can pretty well put this thing back together the way it was. These checks aren't necessarily necessary if you're going to take this whole thing apart, rebuild it, clean it up, grease everything, put it back together, new points or even good set of old points. You're going to redo all these adjustments anyway, but this is just giving you guys an idea of how I go about this. So far, all my tests have checked that I need to do, so let's get into finish tearing this thing down. First thing I did was take the vent covers off. You can see there's gaskets. Some of them are looking pretty tough. You can see that one. That's pretty self-explanatory. Didn't show that. Some of these will have screens in. More your continuous run magnetos will have this screen, so it helps vent this. The D2, D4 Pony have this sealed up. Helps keep the dirt and stuff out because it's basically an intermittent run magneto. So right now I'm in the process of taking the coil out. Now this coil is looking pretty tough. You don't really want to go prying on them. These are a tapered fit in there. Try to get down on the metal part there, pop it out. There we go. A little bit of rusty stuff that'll be cleaned up, but boy, I tell you, this thing is looking tough. I am really surprised this mag sparked as good as it did, but you can see a lot of cracking going on in this coil and stuff. I do have some better coils than some of the mags that might be replacing this. If I do put it in, if I have mag troubles in the future, this will be my suspect part. So, okay, let's see how these screws loosen on this point plate here. That won't come good. A lot of times these screws will be froze in, and so far I've been really lucky. Let's see what this one does. Oh man, that one's... Turn it back and forth. Believe it or not, guys, I do have some abuse screwdrivers. I just save them for abuse. What I'll do, I'll throw that in there. We'll just tap on her, see if we can loosen some threads a little bit. Sometimes this helps, a lot of times it don't. Boy, that acts like it could be a twist-off one. Okay, I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to get the torches out, put a small tip on, put a little heat on that, off and on, let her cool, maybe do a few cycles and see if we can get that loose. That's I can drill them out, but I'd much sooner not have to if I don't have to. So, okay, I got a low flame on her. I do have some wires down in there. I don't mind if they start on fire, get hot, whatever. They're going to be replaced anyway. So, let's give this a try. I'm hoping the heat transfers down into the threads here. I'm not real sure. I might give her just a little touch on the outside here too. Give her another little shot here. Okay, I'm getting some red in her. Gonna let that cool down a little bit before I give it a try. I'll be back here in a minute. Okay, let's see what we come up with here. I can touch it there. Basically, it has cooled down quite a bit. I'm just going to do a little tap on her here first. And we'll give her a try. Well, I don't know. She just turns a little. We'll just work her back and forth. I don't know. I think she's going to twist. Yeah, she's feeling awful loose on me. I don't think she's going to come out. Just go for it. Yeah, that's what happened. So, just makes the job a little more interesting. So, okay, we'll finish taking that out and see what else we come up with. Okay, get the point plate out, kind of assess what we got here. Definitely needs some cleanup on her. As you can see, it looks like these springs are broken, but actually that's the way they're made. There's 4 different leaves that go in there, so that all looks good. Point gap. I think they're salvageable. When we get in and clean them up, we'll know more, but you can see where we twisted off here. At least a little bit left up in there. When I finish tearing this apart, I can get some heat around this area in here. That might help assist me getting that stub out. As long as it's got something to grab onto with the vice grips, we might get that out yet. Next up is a condenser. I've got this screw loose down in there already. We'll just take her apart here. I want to clean this up anyway. Okay. I think my screw is stuck to the magnet in there. Yeah, I can see her. Let's see if we can fish it out with this one. There we go. We got her. Okay. Got internals here pretty well stripped out. Let's start taking covers off the back. All the screws come loose really good in here. Had a couple here really tight, had some concerns. As soon as they snap loose, they screwed right out, so there's no thread freezing issues there. I do have an issue with this one. I don't know if you can detect it. This thing is bent. As I'm turning it out, you can see the screw wobble, plus the plate here is moving back and forth. Now, there are weird things. How they happen, I don't know. But yeah, you can see how that wiggles. But it is coming out. Yeah, you can definitely see a bend in it. Bearings definitely need to be cleaned up. We do have some rust issues going on in here a little bit too, so yeah, it's really a good thing we're tearing this down. Yeah, you can see a pretty good buildup of rust right down in there. Next issue is getting this one off. This has got to come off, and the gear's got to come with this. You got a little washer that holds it down. So might be into another issue here yet, and I'm not sure if you can detect it. This gear is also timed to the armature, and right there is the timing dot, and there's one on that gear too. So another thing that you got to keep in mind when you put these back together. So next up, we'll see if we can get that nut loosed. Now, going back and referencing the manual, I don't know if you can pick it up here or not, but there is a split pin that goes through this nut here. You can see it through this keyway. And the timing, there is a notch in this washer, and that's what the dot in this gear meshes with. So next up, we'll see if we can get that split pin out of there, get the nut off, because according to the manual, this gear and the rotor has to come off together. So I've got the split pin out, had to take this up to the other shop, put the impact on it. That basically spun right off. I couldn't get it out here. The next problem I have is taking this here gear off the shaft. I've got it started already off camera. Super rusty in there. What I had to do is another one of my junk screwdrivers. You can see has been beat on it quite a bit. I did make kind of a little hook on the end where I can fit it underneath there and pry up. What I'm doing now is I have got the rotor starting to come up there, so now I got to go more sideways to pry her. And what I've been doing to make sure it's coming loose is I've been putting this nut on and backing her off about a half a turn. And I got a wrench here that I will turn it to a new hole every once in a while. And I have to lift on the rotor at the same time, otherwise this gear will hit this washer. So let's see if we can get her a little more. Then I'll test the nut. Just come a little bit. Okay, she is getting pretty loose now. I'll try just a couple screwdrivers, see if I think we can get them underneath the edge and finish her up. Yeah, there we go. Make sure we get the rotor lifted up. Like I say, this gear and the rotor has to come off together. Okay, and now I'll get the rotor out. So there we go. Yeah, another really gunky bearing on the back end of that one. Yeah, you can see the rust problems I had in there getting that gear off. Rust in the bottom. Next thing we have to do is take the spacer collar out for the gear. See if we can get this flat key out of here. And then see if we can get this shaft off. Okay, spacer collar up. These little picks are really handy. What I did, I just kind of worked underneath there, turned a little bit, worked, pried, and she pretty much come right loose. So, and you can see there is a step on this spacer collar that goes next to the bearing. Well, the shaft didn't come out with too bad of a struggle. You can see a lot of dry grease in there. Basically what I did, I put the nut, when this was in there, I put the nut on flat with the end of the shaft. And I got this old cheap press here. I put it in there and she slid right out of there. Now, another thing to watch out for. When you take this apart, you will see a notch in that bearing. What you have to do is when you slide that back in the case, you'll see a little pin in here. That notch goes in that pin, and that will help prevent that bearing from spinning in that bore there. So next one up, I've got a bearing down in there. I'll see if I can get myself a little bit of a push thing, put it in a press, and it's got to come out this way. So next up, we'll see if we can get that last bearing out of the case right here. There we have it, pretty much all taken apart. Got the seal out. Don't see any numbers on that. I'll have to go into my book with specifications for measurements. I can come up with a number with that. Looking at the rotor, got a lot of wear here where the seal rode on it. Basically, the purpose of that seal is not to keep the grease in. The inside of this mag runs in the oil part of the crankcase. It's to keep the oil from migrating in, because you do not oil these mags. The only real service you do is grease the bearings, and they should be good to go. I have in the past, I had one of these that laid in the mud. We needed a gear. I took the whole mag. And what happened, this here was rusted and pitted. I took JB Weld, filled all that in, cleaned it up good first, filled it in, put it between centers on the lathe, turned it down, put a speedy sleeve on it with a new seal, and that is what's on Squatch 253's D2 right now, and it's been running that way for years. So that's probably a fix you can do with this one. Just speedy sleeve on this one, new seal, and it should be ready to go. Another thing on that bearing, the last bearing I took out, notch and pin. You make sure that's lined up. The rest of the bearing races that are in the castings, I am going to leave them for now. Just clean them up so I can assess their conditions. From what I can see now, they don't look too bad. And the last thing I need to do is take the magnet out. Got the screws out already. Basically, they weren't even finger tight in there. So you can see it's got a North Pole here. And this thing has been torn down in the past. You can see here, the double notches, that's to get this magnet back on the original position on the case. So see if we can get that magnet off. Again, get my abused screwdriver out here. We use that as a pry bar. Yeah, it's coming pretty easy, really. Okay, and then what I do with these, I put them on a keeper plate to keep the magnetism in them. If you don't put a keeper across, you could lose magnetism. Affects the operation of your mag. Another thing that needs to be done, looks like they have put a coating of something in there. These have to be absolutely clean, no rust, dirt, paint, anything on these surfaces where the magnets go. So we'll get them cleaned up real good and get that taken care of. So basically, that's the end of tearing this thing down. Hopefully it helps in the process for you guys. And Squatch 253, he volunteered to see if he could get that broken off screw out of there. Basically the only casualty I had. That's actually, for some of these old mags, that's pretty impressive. There you have it. Got everything laid out on the bench, pretty much the way I took it apart. Kind of started with the drive gear on down through the ignition parts, cases, bearings, shafts, rotors, magnet stuff. So everything's probably kind of in one pile, so I know that goes to that what section of this mag. So I'm going to wrap this up on this one as just a teardown video. And when I put this back together, it'll be just for putting this thing back together. So shortly, it's going to be a few days. Got to get some parts ordered, cleaned up. So it'll be a few days before I get back into putting this together. So thanks for watching, guys.